You well know I've been called a maverick, someone who marches to the beat of his own drum. I was a candidate for the highest office in the country I love so much. And tonight, I remain her servant. That is blessing enough for anyone. It is an honor to serve the American people in your company. Thank you, fellow senators.
Do not despair of our present difficulties. We believe always in the promise and greatness of America, because nothing is inevitable here. Americans never quit. We never surrender. We never hide from history. We make history.
The voice of Rick Davis, former campaign manager for John McCain, reading a letter that McCain wrote before he died, read today in Arizona. This as there was a little controversy today about flags at the White House, whether they were half-staff or not. It started Sunday. Then Monday, the flag went back up, and then by Monday afternoon, after some hubbub, it came back down after an order was issued. The president putting out a statement after being asked numerous times to comment. He did not. Then issued a statement. Despite our differences on policy and politics, I respect Senator John McCain's service to our country, and in his honor have signed a proclamation to fly the flag of the United States at half-staff until the day of his internment. I've asked Vice President Mike Pence to offer an address at the ceremony honoring Senator McCain at the United States Capitol this Friday. At the request of the McCain family, I've also authorized military transportation of Senator McCain's remains from Arizona to Washington, D.C., military pallbearers and a band support, and a horse and caisson transport during the service at the United States Naval Academy. Finally, I've asked General John Kelly, Secretary James Mattis, and Ambassador John Bolton to represent my administration at his services. Our friend Amy Walter just tweeted, the amount of attention national media is paying to Trump's snub of McCain is disproportionate by a degree of 10 to the amount voters care about this issue. So let's bring in our panel. Tom Rogan, commentary writer for the Washington Examiner, Molly Hemingway, senior editor at The Federalist, and Charles Lane, opinion writer for the Washington Post. Chuck.
Well, it is, whatever the kerfuffle may be about the flag and so forth today, it is nevertheless the fact that the bad blood between President Trump and John McCain has outlived the latter, and that is to say that the relationship between the two of them was very, very chilly. And really began with gratuitous slaps that then candidate Trump took at to disparage John McCain's war record. The president, though, I don't think was doing that sort of out of nowhere or in a personal. It was personal, but it wasn't only meant personally. The president is really trying to remake this Republican Party ideologically away from many of the things John McCain represented, in particular a compromise on immigration, the internationalism, support in foreign policy. And so there was always that connection between the policy and the personal. And of course, on his in his last months on Earth, Senator McCain issued a number of statements through his book and otherwise, making it clear that he wanted his vision to carry on after him.
Molly.
Well, it is nice to see a return to some type of decorum in politics where we remember people for what they are, what is their best moments and the best moments of their career. And with Senator John McCain, there is so much that is admirable and so much good, beginning with his patriotism and service to the country. This is a man who showed true courage in combat and also as a prisoner of war. And it is great to see so many people, whether they were ideological foes or otherwise, take a step back from politics and honor this man and try and emulate some of his patriotism and love of country. I think it is worth noting that the McCain family had, or Senator McCain had, requested President Trump not be at the funeral. And that is a very reasonable request for him to make. I think that what you see from the White House is an attempt partially to not be involved too much in the very appropriate ceremonies that are going to be taking place here. And for once, it's very good to see President Trump not try to make this be, not make this be about him. And I think he's trying to show some respect and distance from the family during this time as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it took a long time to get the statement this afternoon, but they eventually got there to this detailed statement. This is the Senate floor, the Senate Majority Leader and Minority Leader today.
America will miss her devoted son, her stalwart champion, her elder statesman. I will miss one of the very finest gentlemen with whom I've had the honor to serve.
He was equally parts funny and furious, foul-mouthed and statesmanlike. He could put the temper in temperament. He was a brave and honest man. He was a patriot.
And two former presidents, President Obama and President George W. Bush, have been asked to deliver eulogies. Obviously, both men defeated Senator McCain in political races before. Tom?
Yeah, and I think, whatever the personal animus between the president and John McCain, it was, I think, gratifying to see the president back down there quite noticeably and take the right moral stand. And I think the country is better for that. One of the things, though, when we look back at John McCain's legacy is wherever he stands on those various policy issues, a lot of disagreement, obviously, with his vote on health care. The fact of how America's traditional adversaries have responded. And to a rule, whatever we think about the Iraq War, they are gratified that he is gone. And I think that John McCain might say that that is the best measure of his service to this country, that he can say, actually, the enemies are happy I'm gone, but my legacy lives on, and it lives on in his family as well. We will have a lot of coverage as these ceremonies continue throughout the week. I want to turn now to the trade situation. We had the U.S. Trade Representative Lighthizer on the show earlier. Today's deal was about Mexico and moving forward and reconfiguring NAFTA, but he said it's much bigger than that on this show.
The fundamental problem for the United States is China. We have a very, very unbalanced situation there. We have $375 billion worth of trade. We've lost millions of jobs because of Chinese practices, which I believe are unfair, uneconomic. So we have to figure out a way to change the relationship with China.
I wasn't shy about it, Chuck. I mean, this is all kind of a big picture about China. Now, the specific deal points in the NAFTA renegotiation, he says, are good for the U.S.
Well, there's a number of connections between this and China. Let's try and break them apart. The first is sort of a tangible one, which is the domestic content rules are being tightened so that Chinese inputs for the auto industry don't sort of leak through Mexico into the tariff-free into the North American market. He says that's addressed in the deal. And the second connection is that what seems to have happened is the Trump administration sort of finally organized itself to start putting out the trade wars it started with friendlier countries like the European Union and now perhaps South Korea before and now perhaps Mexico, so that it could focus on China and indeed perhaps have some support from those allies, which means the next step in this is going to be crucial, which is getting Canada to buy into it so that you could then have that united North American front again. And I must say it's still quite unclear as to how exactly that's going to work out.
Although it seems that Canada is kind of really anxious to get in the negotiations now, having Mexico signed or at least agreed in principle to the deal.
The tune has changed quite a bit from Canada, and this is a profoundly vindicating day for the Trump administration, which has put forth a strategy that a lot of people thought was risky, and they were very worried about it, of putting the squeeze on tariffs, trying to renegotiate a bunch of trade agreements. President Trump obviously prefers bilateral trade agreements over these multinational things that were quite popular for a few decades. But this is a good agreement. I mean, taking one of the things that was mentioned by Ambassador Lighthizer, that 40 to 45% of goods going into automobiles need to be made by people who are making at least $16 an hour. There was no requirement on how much people needed to be paid in Mexico when they were making these parts. We like to call NAFTA a free trade agreement, but it's really a very complex situation, and renegotiating some of those rules to be more favorable is a good thing.
Quickly. Yeah, very quickly. I think the interesting issue, the European Commission are pretty optimistic on both sides. The White House optimistic, so we're going to see movement there. I think to Molly's point, yes, there is that momentum. I wonder what will happen with the health insurance, though. Mexico, obviously, that makes it sort of slightly a get around with the $16. And on China, I think positively you see this pressure, intellectual property, that's the key. And President Xi in China now under his own pressure. So President Trump looks good on this.
Yeah. We'll see what happens with Canada. We'll follow all of the developments, plus a president-elect in Mexico coming soon into power when we come back. An opportunity to buy some pretty unique artwork.